Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of The Daily Survival. My name is Faraz Patel. Of course, today we will be continuing our conversation with Mehreen Mia Kesimji. This is part two of the three-part conversation on women's empowerment. And we have so much to talk about, but especially today with regards to the empowerment of women and how we can get our females to the top where they truly deserve to be. So let me welcome back Mehreen Mia Kesimji. Mehreen, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for joining us for part two of this conversation.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I know, Mehreen, we spoke so much last week, but specifically today, I know you wanted to focus on a woman empowerment. So let's, of course, start off with that. When we talk of, woman empowerment, we have the conventional people would always say, well, do women belong in a boardroom? Do women belong in important positions? And we always ask ourselves, this is a backward thinking that continues to exist in many societies. Why do you think that is that way? And how do we change that perception to allow there not only to be equality, but most importantly, a representation of females to lead us for the future?
The one thing that I can say is that stems from a societal norm. It's not something that was embedded in a book or a theory. It is purely a societal norm that was built into many a male framework and their mindset, which allows for them to think that a female belongs to only a specific category and she can only do A, B, and C. Excuse me. So here's the problem, though, is that if we have to look, alhamdulillah, into our own Islamic history, my role model, for example, my personal role model in terms of empowerment is Hazrat Khadija radiallahu anha. So empowerment itself is not something that's now. Women being empowered is not something that's recent. It has been in our framework and in our Islamic history, for example, for over 1400 years. There was a businesswoman, there was a wife, there was a mother, there was somebody who led, and she led by example. That was an empowered woman who took the fort, who actually embraced and was brave enough to actually propose to a male younger than her, who married her, etc., etc. So where does empowerment become new? Empowerment has always been there. And if everyone listening to us right now has to sit back and take a few minutes to say, well, if I look back at my life, I've had so many things go wrong, I've had so many difficulties, I've went through this and I've went through that. That's just the point. You've been through it. You've got through it. You are here today. And how have you got through it? You got through it because you tapped into the little empowered being that you already have existing inside you. So why do we have to suddenly put up a barrier between a woman being empowered and leading in a specific role as opposed to a male being empowered and being in a specific role? Remember that we are not here to compete with our brothers. There's no such thing as we have to compete. Each one of us is placed here by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a purpose. A male for his, a female for hers. But in no way does he discriminate a woman against a male. If anything, we are given that empowered status by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why do we as women, for example, belittle ourselves to a point where we don't allow ourselves to flourish? Because that is the case. Many women might not like to hear that, but it is us. And it is up to us to pull ourselves out of that. It is also up to us to allow for our brothers and our counterparts to want to actually see that us being empowered is not necessarily negative for them. Us being empowered and being in that boardroom and taking on the leadership roles that we can take will actually benefit them. So it's all up to us in terms of how we perceive things, how we do things, how we accept things. We need to break societal norms. We need to live for what Allah has ordained for us, and we need to understand that if we have to live for His pleasure and His purpose, and we want Him to give us what is best for us, we need to do and act as if what is best for us is there. And it is within us. Us as women and leaders and the women that we are leaders daily. You don't need a certificate to make you a female leader or to make you feel like you are empowered. If you as a woman right now are somebody who is a house executive, you wake up, you deal with stuff, you make sure everybody gets fed, you go to bed, etc., etc. Everybody's seen to in your home. Throughout the day, you're making decisions about certain things, and you'd have a decision to make about your child, you'd have a decision to make about your husband, or about yourself, or about somebody else, or even your neighbor for that matter. But these are decision-making processes, and you get through this the whole day, and then eventually you retire for the night. The point is, you have taken on leadership qualities to make those decisions. You've actually managed your entire home. You've managed those people that are in the home. Exactly how is it that different? Yes, there are differences if we have to be totally technical, but how is the actual basic different? It's not. You are a leader already as a woman. You lead in your home already as a woman. Your husband, your children, your family sees you as that leader. They need to, however, see you in the leadership role that you play, not as a submissive leadership, as the leadership that you are, that you own the space that you're in, that you are not overpowering, but your empowered self is actually beneficial to your family. This is where the female empowerment comes in, and you, as the leader that you are, can excel to become accepted. And we are not here to prove ourselves to men or to our brothers. We need to be recognized that that potential for women as leaders already vests within us. It's already there. It's an Allah given right to us to be leaders that we need to be for society, because that is who we are. And our maternal natural instincts are what actually will make better leaderships, because we become empathetic, as opposed to the societal norm which says if you are women and you are leaders, you become too emotional, etc. But no, that empathetic side of you as a woman is what makes you want to grow those who work with you and work for you. So I know this because this is who I am in my company with the people I work with, and etc. And I don't say they work for me, because this is not my mindset. I like my people who are around me to feel that they are part of me and I'm part of them. So, for example, an organogram that you will see of mine will not ever be triangular where I'm sitting at the top. I don't believe in that, and I don't appreciate it. And I appreciate it if somebody else likes it, but this is my personal philosophy. I prefer the organogram to be flat-based, and it is about us all working as a team. And us women like that. We like to build each other. We like to build our homes. We like to build our units. So as women leaders in a boardroom, surely we would be able to take that a step further and make sure we build for success in our units there.
Mehreen, in 4 minutes, just to sort of like sum it up, and you mentioned the roles and the leadership qualities that women take on. I mean, someone like yourself, you're a wife, you run these NGOs, and then of course, you get mothers, daughters. The responsibilities just continue to pile up, especially mothers who are single mothers who have to deal with so much. That is something commendable, is it? And that in itself is a sense of empowerment without having to go ahead and claim some sort of title.
Yes. And what is important as well is I'm not a lawyer and I won't profess to be one. I won't profess to be something I'm not. But I do have multiple accolades and I have all of these different things. Yes, I run the NGOs. I also have my own company, which I'm the CEO of, which is the MEA company. And just to give a little bit of insight, MEA, like we discussed last week, is Motivate, Empower, and Advance. But it was actually, I was looking for something to name my company after my dad, which is MIA, MEA. And of course, I know the system in South Africa kept kicking me out to say there's no MIA available, but you have MEA available. So it's pronounced as the MEA company to keep his legacy going. But through the MEA company, I've managed to meet and have consults and negotiate and work with globally, women especially, and build up networks, etc., because that's the job. So over and above running the NGO, that's there, and that's the role that I would play. But we need to also understand that us as women, in the role that you play, you need to be very honest with yourself before you're able to try to empower yourself. And that is where the concept of empowerment comes in. And after, I know we're going to probably go for a break. I'd like to discuss it further later. Is if you want to become more empowered in who you are, you have to become very honest with who you are. And for that, you don't need a certificate. I can have multiple, and I do, alhamdulillah, those are my gifts from Allah, multiple certificates, multiple accolades. But I always say, I will keep learning because it's my lifelong, that's the way I am. I'd be a lifelong learner. But the more education I have is not for other people. There are some people who now would say, but maybe we didn't know you did this. We didn't know you studied that. We didn't know you did this. That's fine. Did not do it for you to know. I did it for me to gain knowledge, because then I'm able to put on any cap I need to on any day in any boardroom and have any discussion with anybody. So how you would like to empower yourself for what you need for your journey is important. So no woman needs that certificate. A single mom right now deserves her own. So give yourself the validation. that you have endured, you're getting through, and you are the warrior woman that you are. So every woman needs to see themselves in that light, and that's where it starts.
Yeah, definitely. And we are going to be coming back after the break to just continue this conversation. And I'm going to be touching on, some of the roles that Ambassador Mehreen does play. So coming up after the break, we will be continuing the conversation. It's part 2 of our 3-part series with Ambassador Mehreen Mia Kesemji, and of course the role of women empowerment here in South Africa and across the globe. Do stay tuned to The Daily Survival. Welcome back to the Daily Survival. This is the second part of the 3-part series with Ambassador Mehreen Mia Kesemji. Mehreen, your roles are quite a lot, and as you mentioned before, these are gifts that have been granted to you by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. There's just one I want to pick out. Your Global Goodwill Ambassador in Humanitarianism, awarded by the United Nations. This is massive, and I think for a South African woman to have that, I think is so important. Mehreen, just describe for us the role that was given to you by such a large organization and just how well you've taken this role, number one, but also the responsibility of it in helping the fellow man and fellow woman.
Alhamdulillah. That was granted to me by the GIA, which is called the Global Intelligence Alliance, who is affiliated to the UN in the USA. It was granted to me quite surprisingly in October of last year. They don't, obviously, you get nominated for these, and my work in humanitarianism and the work I've been doing has always been since I think I was a little girl. And I have been interviewed on this before, and I always say that I have to give credit to a lot, of course, my family, but my grandfather, because I would always tag along with him whenever he was doing his stuff. So he was, he founded a masjid. He he would walk into a hospital and visit people, and I'd wait for him in a foyer or in the car, and I'd see people smile at him, and I'd say, well, who is that? And he'd say, I don't know. So I said, so why did you talk to them to make them smile? And he'd say, because they need it. So small things like that I learned from him, and that's Haji Ibrahim Shah, and I give him, may Allah grant him Jannah, inshallah. And so a lot of my stuff started when I was little. For example, my first lecture that I gave to a group of women with their daughters was when I was 14 in Cape Town. And that was so spontaneous. And little did I realize that I'd actually end up going back there to that moment to find exactly what I would like to do and where to fulfill my purpose. So in terms of the humanitarian ambassadorship, for me, it was really at a time where things were very difficult. It was a downtime. It was within COVID. I had already started doing stuff like, going out into the townships, et cetera, et cetera. And we were in lockdown, and then you get the call to say, well, are you so-and-so? And yes, and this is who you are, this is who we are, and we'd like to award you this. You need to please check your email, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it just followed through. And alhamdulillah, when I got that, for me, it was literally, I don't do anything for anybody to say, Mehreen, well done. I do it purely for the sake of Allah. So for me, this was Allah's way of saying, I am happy and I'm pleased, and I want you to take on this as a gift from me. So the ambassadorship is actually me getting, it's not so much the title, it's me getting the acknowledgement from the universe to say what I'm doing is benefiting humanity. It's benefiting our ummah. And it's not just people within you that you are reaching out to. It is around the world that you are being recognized for doing this. Because, who would think me in my little home in wherever I was in Durban, and touching these people's lives in different locations and townships, and going out and doing everything every day, not because of not having a job, but because of COVID and lockdown. I just felt I can't sit and do nothing. I wanted to do something for others. I didn't realize that the impact was that great, that the work I've been doing over the years for humanity, the past couple of years, were just being noticed by other people. So alhamdulillah, for me, maintaining that in terms of leaving the legacy for those after me is what's important, because it's not so much the retaining of the ambassadorship title, it's actually being the ambassador of the people. And that's why I take that to heart. I really take it to heart that recognition is from Allah, that gift is from Allah. The recognition, of course, coming from them in the USA gives me the motivation to say, well, if I can, everybody else can. And then I need to push more to make sure more people get the help that they need.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that, Mehreen. And before, obviously, we went to the break, you were going to expand further on women empowerment. So I want to add this question to it also. Uh, like yourself, so many women have very important roles, not only in South Africa, but in our society. So, how does this further enhance women empowerment and really make sure that our females have a huge and important place in society, not only as mothers, daughters, aunts, but also, leaders of our society?
It's important, firstly, Brother Faraz, that each one of us as women take cognizance of who we are, what we're doing, and why we do it. Because empowerment is something that's all around right now. You can go into lots of different workshops, you can Google it, you can go into different platforms, you'll hear more about it, etc., etc. But until you actually take cognizance of you, what do you want out of it, and you understand this concept of empowerment. Because empowerment is not you becoming powerful over somebody where you can dictate suddenly and everybody does what you want. No, empowerment is about you, and this is my personal opinion, what I teach. Empowerment is about your self growth, your self development. It's growing you to be the leader that you would like to be. Each one of us, however, has a special skill. So some might be able to talk openly, some might be able to do something else for other people, some might be able to lead. Each one can lead in their own right, in their own way, but develop who you are. But to start the developing process, you've got to understand. Because I'll give you a quick analogy of if I sit with you now and I tell you, you know what, here's pieces of paper and I want you to write down on each piece of paper an emotion that you're going through that's tearing you down, or it's difficult, whether it's depression, anxiety, sadness, whatever it is. And then I tell you, okay, now that you've done those strips of paper, you're going to fold them up tightly into small bits and we're going to throw it into this little bag. And then you give me the bag and I'm going to shake this bag up. And then I say to you, Brother Faraz, now it's there. All these pieces are folded up. Now can you pick out anxiety, please? Are you going to be able to do this? No. So even if I empty out the bag with the folded pieces of paper onto a floor and I say to you, now, Brother Faraz, can you pick it up? Will you be able to still do it? No. What would be the reason you'll be able to find it is you have to open up each one of those pieces of paper to find where anxiety is written down. The same applies to you as a person. You have got to be able to unpack. You have got to open up certain files that you closed up within you, unpack them, work with them, deal with them, and then move on. Because until you do that, you're not going to become as empowered as you may like to be. It's important that you realize that. It's important that we know that we have got to be honest with ourselves to find out, be aware, and we have to grow. But when that has to happen, it also, it involves you being honest with yourself. It involves you wanting to make the difference for you, to be the leader that you need to be.
And on that point, Mehreen, how important is it that your environment allows that empowerment to happen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got shut down twice, I think, and in one of my workshops as well, where a brother actually said to me, how can you go around empowering these women? They're going to be disrespectful. They're going to lose their place, etc., etc. And I said, brother, what is your understanding of empowerment? And he says, well, my sister went to get empowered and she actually came back and she dresses like this and she does this and she does this. So I said, every single person has got their own prerogative, their own understanding, their own reason for doing certain things. But here's what we need to understand is if you are a woman and you have your husband, your roles that you different, the different roles you play. For example, you can be a daughter, you can be a wife, you can be a mother, you can be a grandmother, you can be a businesswoman, all of these roles that you play. You need to be able to be the best version of you in each of the roles that you identify with. So right now, I'm a daughter, I'm taking care of an ailing father. This is the role that I'm playing, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. Now I'm doing an interview with you as this empowered woman and the leader of the globe, and with my company as CEO, I'm doing it to the best of my ability. Whichever role that you are encompassing and going with, you have got to be the best version of you. But it's not the best version of you to be able to make people be proud of you. It's not the best version so that people set standards for you. It's for you. It's about you and your creator, number one, and it's about you being the best for you first. Once you understand that and you stop trying to do what you have to do because you're looking for the outside recognition, the outside validation, because remember, once you start, if you keep doing that, if you keep looking for outside validation, you're going to always want to please and you're going to have expectations that might not happen, and that makes you reduce your emotional state. We don't want this. And our environments have got to be extremely supportive. Extremely supportive in terms of understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Many a woman would come to me and say, Maureen, I'd love to come to you for a session or two. Can we do this? Can we do an empowerment session? And the first thing I'd ask is, if you're married, does he know? And are you here? And I ask that purely out of respect, because some women actually say, I want to see you, but I don't want him to know. And you can't do that because you're going back into that space. He needs to understand and grow with you. So when we talk empowerment, yes, we're talking woman empowerment as well, which is what I specialize in. But we need to understand we can't empower only women and our girl children. We need to empower our men and our boy children to understand the roles that each of us play so that we gain the respect about each other. So a brother does not need to see that if his wife or his sister, etc., is going to become going for an empowerment session, they're going to come back disrespectful. No, he needs to understand and embrace that she's going to grow herself to come back a better version of her, which is for our benefit. And when women become empowered, they need to be empowered so that their families see the benefit in their growth, in their development. And that's a catalyst effect. And we always say it starts with a woman. It starts with one woman in her family with her unit. And that changes, and society, that community then starts to see the difference happen in that home. It's a catalyst effect. The next woman will want to do the same. The next home will do the same. Each brother in that community is going to see, well, this woman changed, her family changed. Brothers are going to start wanting to be empowered themselves because they want to. It's not about competition. They want to collaborate. They want to be one with their partner. They want to be one in their home and grow each other. So it's all about your mindset. It's all about the mindset. And if you are somebody who is stuck in the mindset of societal norms and looking for validation outside of you, and if you are, for example, somebody who is scared that if my wife or sister becomes empowered, and what if so and so says this, stop. So and so is not there. You can't control them. Control what you can, and that is to allow people to grow so that you don't become this competition for them. Grow each other and grow together. That's what's important.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely an important point right there. The support system, the support structure that allows that empowerment to happen, and they can really go a long way in seeing women empowerment take its next level. Well, after the break, we will be continuing the conversation with Mehreen Biak SMG. Do remember, this is the second part of the three-part series we have every week on the Daily Survival, and we are still focusing on women's empowerment. Stay tuned to the Daily Survival. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to the Daily Survival. My conversation with Mehreen Biak SMG is currently on the go, 2 out of 3, and of course next week we will be wrapping up this conversation. Mehreen, we spoke about mindset and mentality. Now, of course, we live in a society where there's always a sense of, all right, we're going to put a stumbling block on women. We're not going to allow them to progress because this is just the way it is. This is society, and they must learn to deal with it. How do we break the barriers? How do we break the ice?
Firstly, we have to go into why is the mindset there in the first place? Where does it come from? Secondly, if you are somebody who's coming from there but would like to change and you're just scared to stand up for it, you need to acknowledge that you need to change you first. If you as a brother would like your wife or your daughter or your sister to do this, but you're scared of what society's going to say, then you need to, in all honesty, buck up and say, listen, I'm standing with them and I want them to do this. Remember, and I'll give you this as an analogy quickly. Let's just say we're all hungry. You're hungry, Brother Faraz, and you feel like, okay, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea and a sandwich, right? So you go into your kitchen, you open your fridge, and you take out the milk with the tea, and you take out some cheese, and you take out whatever, and you're going to make yourself this cheese sandwich with tea. So lo and behold, you put the bread onto a plate, and you see a little mold on the bread. Okay, so now we can't use the bread. So we decide, okay, we'll use the cheese, and as you open up the cheese, you can see a little bit of mold there also. You're not going to use that. Then you say, okay, let's just have the cup of tea. Go and you make the tea, you boil some milk because you like hot milk, and the milk boils up and you say, okay, now the milk's gone bad. So are you going to still consume the stuff that you just found that are gone bad in your kitchen? No. Why? Because you know it's toxic for you, because you know it's not good for you. So likewise, I'd like to ask, life right now throws us all these curveballs which are moldy. And it's stuff that we don't really want, we don't like. It's stuff that we just can't have. You can't digest that. It's not good for you. So what are you going to do with it? Yes, you're going to throw it out, but you're still hungry. Empowerment is all about identifying and knowing why you can't do something, why something's not good for you, and what to do about it. So, for example, there's no cheese now because it's bad. There's no bread because it's bad. There's no milk because it's bad. But there's an egg which I can boil to have a boiled egg, or there's crackers I can replace the bread with, or I can just have the black tea. I don't necessarily need the milk. So it's all about you and your perception, how you perceive things, and about you reframing certain things that are negative for you. If you know something is toxic for you and you can't digest it because it's A, B, and C that will happen to you that is bad for you, why then would you take in anything in life that you know is toxic for you? When you can actually learn via empowering yourself how to reframe certain things, rethink it to find an alternative to benefit yourself. That hunger is mine. I still need to quench my thirst. I still need to be fulfilled with the hunger I'm feeling. So why would I put in something toxic? I won't, but I'm still hungry. So what's my replacement? The same applies to life and what's happening. So empowering yourself is actually you finding and learning how to find those best alternatives and grow yourself so that your best alternatives in each role is best for you. And when we have to look at the people around us, when we have to look at the mindset, it's all about that. It's perception. But the key to it, Brother Faraz, is how do you know that that moldy bread is bad for you? How do you know that if you have to have the bad milk, it's bad for you? That you can't have moldy cheese? Why? Because you've been made aware of. So empowerment is just that. It is teaching you to become more aware of certain things about you, that to become aware of you in a certain way that you can grow those negative parts of you to the better parts that they need to be to find the best version of you. That's what empowerment is about. Empowerment is not about you being powerful, and I say it over and over again. It's about you growing yourself to learn and understand you better so that you can put together reframing structures of your mind, what's happening with you, so you make clearer decisions going forward to be the best version you can be, whatever your role will be then and encompasses that you need to do.
Behrin, I want to shift to, a lot of recreational, activities and its professionalism in it. And I'm going to talk about sport in general and women in sport. And what I've noticed is that, we see the South African national women's football team and we see various sporting codes. And one thing that always stands out, they are the best performers, but they are the most underpaid. How big of a problem is that?
Again, you have to ask yourself, where does the problem come from? Is it not societal? It's the mindset of society that makes us all become wary of a woman to be in a specific level only. She can't be above that, can't be like that. And that's where it has to start to change. The change has got to start with this mindset, this concept that is stigmatizing and making women become what they're not. And us women have got to start to stand up and say, we don't have to necessarily conform to what societal norm is. We need to be the change that we want to see. And that's what I teach. For me, my life's example is my lesson that I teach. I am the change that I wish to see. And the same applies to every other woman out there. So when we have to have women that are in sport, their excelling is actually them being the change. And them being the change is the proof in the pudding that people need to see that that is exactly why the mindset has to change. That it's there, it's valid, it's evidence, it's in front of you. You can't deny it. So we need to just start to change our perceptions. And I always say this: start with yourself. Start with you as the woman that you are and ask yourself, what can you do to change that societal norm that's there? What can you do to change you and become the best version of you so that their mindset has to change? But we're not doing it for them. We're doing it for us first. When we start to be the best version of us, they need to see it. That is what you're seeing in the sporting world right now. Women are excelling in their fields because they've given the chance to do it from an academic level, from a professional level. However, you have societal norms that say, oh, but you shouldn't be doing that in the first place. I've had people shoot me down to say, I'm a woman, I shouldn't be voicing myself in public. Why? Because I'm a Muslim woman. Where does that come from? So we have the societal norms, societal mindsets, and we always say it starts with you to be the change you wish to see. Grow yourself, empower yourself to the point where no one can tell you that you can't do A, B, and C. You must be able to find out for yourself what you can and cannot do. And that grows you to be the most empowered version of you. Because at the end of the day, we need to remember we have multiple roles we play. You're born into this world in one role. You grow into each of your roles as you go along. Nowhere does it say that in each of the roles that you have until you die, you have to neglect the first role that you have. So you're born as a baby, you grow into the scholar, then you grow into somebody who has a career, then you get married, then you have a child, and then you become a mother, then you're a grandmother. That's your life cycle. But in each of them, you haven't altered the one before. So if you have to look at, for example, when you get to the point of a role in your life cycle where you choose your career, first you choose your career, okay. Then you decide you need to choose your spouse, you get married. And after you choose your spouse, you have a child. How often is it that our women and our brothers, for example, once the child is born, there's always tension in the union. There becomes tension in the marriage. That's because for some reason, the mentality is that once there's a baby, we need to forget the roles that we have as the husband and wife because we need the parent now. No, you need to be able to encompass each role that you play when you have to play it. So when baby is asleep, we are still the couple. When I'm with my mom, I'm the child. When I'm with my sister, I'm the sibling, etc., etc. So you need to identify you in your specific roles that you are playing, like the sporting women are doing. And we tell them, just keep going. All of us women right now, keep going and find the best version of you because it is your right to do that.
And Mehreen, adding to that, toxic masculinity and of course patriarchy. I mean, you will always have the few who would say, listen, there's roles for women, there's roles for men. How do we erase that narrative?
Well, let me ask this
Mm,
as a counter question.
mm,
What is my role? If somebody has to say to me,
mm,
you as a woman, you have a role to play, stick to your role, I'll be like, okay, so tell me what's my role? If you're going to tell me my role is to go and cook, cool. I've done it already for
mm.
the day. You're going to tell me my role is to take care of my child. She's taken care of already. What's the next one? Your role is not to be able to do what you're doing right now. Why? And I bet you half the time they will not be able to answer that question. The why never gets the proper answer.
Yes.
Again, that's the problem. I don't have a problem with me. So why do you have a problem with me? My spouse doesn't have a problem with me. Why do you have a problem with me? So again, we have to ask ourselves, where does it come from? So that masculinity and the egocentric mindset of a woman has to be beneath, a woman has to only do A, B, and C. Ask yourself, why do you think that? Why? I am able to be a daughter. I am able to be a mother. I'm able to be a wife. I'm able to be a Muslimah. I'm able to make sure I carry out every duty as much and as best as I can for the pleasure of my creator. How is what I'm doing as a leading woman in the globe different or difficult for anyone to understand or support? Why is it not accepted by some out there, especially the patriarchy, especially the masculine world? Why is it so difficult? I'm not your competition. So if they have to view every woman leader as competition, that is when the problem comes in. Rather work with those women leaders and say, together we can build a better ummah because she will be able to do A, B, and C, and I will be able to do E, F, and G, and you carry on and carry on. And this is how we work together. The ummah needs us all. It doesn't need only men. The ummah is where does the ummah come from? A woman. Let's not forget the woman's role. Let's not forget the woman's identity. That I for individuality, that I for importance, that is a woman. And that importance was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So no human, no masculinity, no egocentric soul is able to take that right given to her by Allah away from her. So why do we as women also settle for less when we don't have to?
Yeah.
And that would be where we start.
Yeah, I know, and you hit the nail on the spot. There is no limitations, and of course, it needs to be expanded further with regards to women's empowerment. After the break, we will be wrapping up the conversation with Mehreen Miak SMG. So welcome back to the Daily Survival, part 2 of 3 of my conversation with Mehreen Miak SMG on women's empowerment. Mehreen, let's now go to the boardroom, and I know, obviously, in your interaction in business, so we see a lot of our women, our females, sitting in boardroom levels, very high positions on paper. That is, either the CEO or chairman, chairwoman's, whatever the case may be. Fine, it's nice having them there, but they're not, number one, getting the pay that they deserve, and number two, when it comes to big decisions, they are being excluded quite massively. Is that something that you have seen during your seminars and discussion with women who hold that position?
I have, and I've actually experienced it as well. So, you'd walk in, you'd be invited purely because you have the ambassadorship title, for example, or because you have your company, or because you've done A, B, and C globally. So they need you to be on the register, so to speak, to say, well, so and so has been to our function. And then you sit there, and then you have to basically let them talk and come to Q&A, or come to you actually having to say what you need to say, or ask a question that's going to kind of disrupt or rock the boat a little bit. It's not very acceptable. And that's not leadership. Okay. Me in my leadership role, for example, I have got to understand that I do not know it all. I have not got every bit of knowledge under the sun. I have got fantastic volunteers, for example, that go and do stuff that I am not doing. Right now, if somebody has to build my home, I can't quite go and tell the builder, this is how you're going to put up your bricks. This is how you're going to mix that cement. I'm not going, he's built, he knows that's his specialty. There's somebody who's cleaning our roads every day. Am I doing that? No. Why don't you give due cognizance to people in the roles that they play? So the same applies to a woman that's sitting in front of you at a boardroom. When she has to speak, listen to what she has to say, because her role and her mindset is different from yours. If she is there purely for the sake of having her on a piece of paper, then she shouldn't be there. And then I have to ask the sister who's sitting there with her name purely on a piece of paper, what are you doing there? Why are you there? Do you know that you're there for just a name on a piece of paper? Because when I talked about now the function that I went to, and I realized that I was there purely for the sake of the title, etc., I left. I excused myself and I left. Not to disrespect the organization or where I was at, but I was not going to be privy to sit there purely for the sake of having an accolade for them to say we had an ambassador sitting in our presence. No. If you are not about what I am for, if you are not about sitting to negotiate with me, and you're not about trying to teach me also, because I like to learn, I like to have the criticism, I like to learn more about myself and to grow, and I like to get involved in different projects and programs, but I'm not going to sit there and allow for you to merely dictate, so to speak. So us as sisters, for example, have got to also take the stand. You've got to also know that you just having your name on a piece of paper to show that you're a director, or that you're a CEO, or that you're invited to something, or you're sitting at the boardroom with all of these fantastic people. If you are somebody who's liking that and is okay to just sit there quietly because of that, then this is you. But if you're somebody who actually wants to change, you want to be voicing your stuff, you want to be somebody who's making the difference, and if you're sitting there is not working for you, then ask yourself, why are you sitting there? Get up and go and make the change. Be the change that you need to see. Because remember, I can't change the mentality right now of the brother who doesn't like me to be who I am. I can't change the mentality of the masculine egocentric person, for example, who might be sitting at a boardroom and doesn't like me to voice my opinion. I can't change that. But I can change my principle. I can change me. I can change my concepts. I can change my perception. I can change what I can control, and I can control me. I can control who I go to, what I go and see, and what I say to who. So that is the way it is. But I have to say also, on the same breath, that we do have phenomenal men in our society, including Muslim men, who really, really push for our women to be empowered. And they themselves get shot down because they stand up for women, and they stand up for women to be the voice that they need to be for themselves. Because men don't want to be the voice for women anymore. They believe that men can. And when women can. So when men are doing it for women and they're saying women need to speak for themselves, they too are getting shot down. The whole idea is for us to not give up. You just keep, as a woman, you keep going for you. As a brother who wants to fight and allow that woman to do what she has to do, you stand up for her and for you. And that is how we're going to be able to build the change. We're not allowed, you're going to spend time and energy trying to change someone else's mindset. You're not going to be able to do it. But if they start to see, pardon me, and witness the change in you and your mindset and what works for you, then they will conform and slowly start to adjust themselves to you. Remember, I can't control what's outside of me. I can't control who's going to say what about me. I can't control who thinks what about me. But I can control myself. I can control my reactions to certain things. So I can control my reaction to me sitting in that boardroom and starting to feel like, oh my gosh, wait, am I being intimidated, or am I being very uncomfortable, and why? Become aware of you, become aware of your surroundings, become aware of you in how you are growing. Am I in a space that's growing me, or is it going to negate me? Do I want to be here, or don't I want to be here? You have these rights to answer them because it's about you. This is what empowerment teaches you, to become so aware of yourself that in every space that you are in, you're aware of what it's doing to you and about you, and you need to make choices and challenges, change your decisions as well.
One final question, and to add to that, Mehreen, to wrap up, part two of the three-part series. The vulnerability aspect is there with many women, especially younger women who are entering into the corporate space and feel that they are going to be taken advantage of. What do you feel is the role of us as men and society as a whole to protect the women and, most importantly, empower them into those leadership when they are there based on merit and they are there on of the fact that they truly deserve to be at this level in boardroom levels?
Firstly, let me say that I think it's up to us women first to protect ourselves. Because if we know our full potential, then nobody will be able to negate that potential that you have. If you are an empowered woman and you are entering a zone that you know you want to flourish at, then you need to push yourself to be heard to make sure you flourished in the role. When it comes to men who are in a specific space who see that the women are not being treated fairly, etc., then those men can also take a stand. Because if it's a corporate entity, for example, we do know legally that there are measures. There are people you can go to. There are higher authorities that you can, you can lay complaints, you can build up stuff. But the whole idea is in unity, there's more. When you stand together and you're actually facing the same and you want to be the same, you want to see the changes that have to happen. If you collectively go together and say, we prefer that this happens, we're okay with it to happen, voice yourself. As a brother who is watching his sister being belittled continuously in her job, and if you don't like it, voice yourself. Are you somebody who's rather scared, oh gosh, if I'm going to speak now for her, I'm going to lose my job, and then what happens to me? There are resources, there are avenues. Every corporate has got to have an avenue where you be able, you're able to go to your supervisor or et cetera, and find out what measures you can take. Because remember, there's a saying of mine that says, the power to empower lies within the self. And it's all about you and yourself. So you as a woman who's entering the corporate world and as a young leader that's about to take on certain things, if you're aware that this is what might happen, then you might be able to become more diligent in your approach of them because this is your empowered being. And if you are a brother watching that and you're not happy with how she's being treated, make your voice heard. Your voice being heard together with her being who she has to be as an empowered soul, both of you attacking the same system is not going to be unheard. Because if it's just one, it's one voice, yes. But if it's two and there's collective thought and process in terms of how to manage it, you will definitely see a change. And it, like I said before, it all starts with us though. Us women have got to also take cognizance of us being who we have to be. And our brothers have got to really, really understand that we are not here as your competition. No woman is there to compete with the man. We all need to work together because this world is for us. Our children need all of us. In building their futures, they need all of us to work collectively, not competitively. And some women out there can do fantastic jobs to make your company grow, their own companies grow. Collaborate with them, connect with them. Start to see them for who they are, not necessarily look at them as a gender. Look at them for the mentality, look at them for the merit, the academics, the accolade, whatever comes with them that makes them who they are. Don't just look at them and say, oh gosh, it's a woman, now what? Because that specific statement in itself is powerful. The fact that she is a woman that is there is power in itself to boost your company and your entity forward. And your people will give more productivity. So you have to be open-minded, but you also need to voice yourself. You have got to be able to voice yourself. And that's what we have to fight for that. We have to fight for it because yes, it is rife. It is still something that's out there, sadly, that we do have our women being shot down. But it's up to us women who are taking the stand to continue to take the stand. And for those women who are experiencing these difficulties to know that there are avenues for you. There are avenues for you to grow yourself, empower yourself, and there's also avenues for you to go through where you can be heard so that your changes can be seen and you can be the change that you need to be for the best version of you, inshallah.
Mehreen, I was going to ask for parting words, but I think you've delivered those parting words already. I would like to say Jazakallah to you for making the time for us for part two of the three-part conversation. Inshallah, we will be wrapping it up with so many more conversations to continue with Mehreen Miak SMG. We say Jazakallah to you.
Jazakallah khair for having me and keep us all in du'as, especially for my dad at this time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Ameen, ameen, thumma ameen, wa alaikum salam. Well, that's all we have for you here today on Women's Empowerment on the Daily Survival. We'll see you again next week, inshallah, for the Women's Empowerment, but do stay tuned for the rest of the week for more Daily Survival topics. For myself, Ras Patel, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.